The views and opinions expressed on the Lang and LeBlanc podcast are solely those of the hosts, producers, and guests of the program. They in no way, shape, or form reflect those of any affiliates the presenters or guests represent.
Wherever you're listening today, welcome and thank you for showing up to our what's this, 5th or 6th episode of the Saskatchewan Saturday Night project?
Has it been that many already?
Yeah, well, you were missing for that one.
Oh, so, yes. Okay.
So even this one, you're barely here. You're here right here. You're here in the middle, and you're here at the end. But well, I guess you're here with the Sheepodgs. We're going through a bunch of stuff today. Thanks for tuning in. This is our 18th episode overall of the Lang LeBlanc Podcast. It's Saskatchewan Saturday Night. I'm Brady Lang. We already checked in with Avery, but let's check in with Avery again. How are you doing today, Avery?
I'm good. It's a little cool out here. We actually got snow yesterday.
Ooh.
And I was so upset looking out my window, and I didn't expect that much snow to be on the ground, but it's all melted now, which is good. There is a few patches in the bushes and on people's roofs, but hopefully by the end of the weekend, it's all gone and we're seeing sunshine next week.
Yes, exactly. We didn't get too much snow here. Like the rooftops were a little white when I woke up, but that was about it. By the time I actually rolled out of bed, I worked the morning shift this week. So yesterday was my sleep day and work ahead on the podcast day, which we'll get to in a minute here because I don't know what happened to me, but I kind of went wild yesterday.
Yeah, you seemed bored yesterday. You
were
sending me a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. But basically once I woke up at about 10, everything was gone. So no snow in Saskatoon. Well, there was snow. We're rambling today.
Yeah, I think we should just come to expect snow at least once a month here in this province. Like,
yeah, exactly.
No matter what time of year it is, just
hoping in August. In
August,
I hope it doesn't fall on my birthday.
Yeah.
All right, a little bit more on us. We're the Lang and LeBlanc Podcast. We basically are a show about Saskatchewan. We talk to Saskatchewan people. We share some Saskatchewan stories. And at the end of the day, we all smile and have some fun. So this week on the Saskatchewan Saturday Night, which is, we're getting really complicated with this. We need like a frequently asked questions page. So basically, we're changing a few things. So the end of this month is basically going to be the end of our first season, technically. With podcasts, it doesn't really matter when you end a season, but I feel like just with everything that's changing, we know so much more than what we did when we first started this podcast compared to now. I feel like this is the perfect kind of place, especially with the interview series that I have rolling out. We're going to get to that a lot more and have our first actual interview with that series in just a few moments here. But I feel like it was just a perfect time where we could just take a step back, change a few things. So we're going to have different kind of music, different intros, different outros. It's not going to be the same Lang and LeBlanc podcast you remember, but it's still going to have the same content coming out. It's still going to be me talking. It's still going to be Avery talking. It's still going to be Matt and Marty every month. But we're going to be bringing in really interesting guests still over the next month or so. So I'm really excited to keep this going and kind of show off what we have here. We're bringing back askSask again this week. Also, we're going to have a little bit of a look at our NHL playoff draft, which I'm getting totally destroyed in. And then also we're going to have Eric Anderson of YXE Underground on this episode. That one's going to start here in just a few moments. But Avery, what are you thinking about all this change? I kind of sprung it on you, but at the same time, I had some extra time to do some things. So you know what? I like the new logo. I like the new green. So
do I. The green really stands out, and the logo. I like how you made us kind of peeking up from underneath something.
Yeah.
I found that hilarious. Yeah, no, it looks good. And you were sending me all this stuff yesterday, even after we had posted for the day, because normally our quote is like, okay, one post a day. And then Brady goes and posts like 3 more things. And I was like, holy smokes, this guy's going overboard today, which is good. But yeah, no, we had like you had a lot of fun doing that yesterday, and I think it looks good, especially for the summer. It gives us a fresh look, especially for the new season coming up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's kind of what this season is going to be based on. When we look into the future, we're really hoping to get some not live episodes, but episodes where we're all together, right? Whether that be just you and me, whether that be you, me, Marty, and Matt, whether that be any of our guests, if they're local and can get to one specific place. I think the summer of this summer in Saskatchewan is obviously going to be a lot different than last one. We're getting close to reopening. Very hopeful that happens, but I'm not holding my breath just based on the way things happen. You can't really look past next week. Another thing with this podcast series, everything was based around when I got my vaccination too. So if you do hear me talking about my vaccination, that's because I think with this one, I did this interview at 7. I got my vaccination at 10 that morning. So I was 8-9 hours after I got poked. So I talked about it a little bit at the top, but it's great to have someone like Eric on, just someone from the podcasting community. We haven't done a great job of kind of reaching out and talking to other people, and I feel like this is that first step. But at the same time, Eric was great. He was really nice to us, Avery, which is good. He very much thanked us for the work we're doing, and kind of made my heart feel a little full. But
awesome. I'm excited to hear this interview actually, because I was planning on attending, and then all of a sudden something came up and I had to head out. So
that's okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's all good.
I'll have fun listening to it as much as I would have enjoyed sitting there and listen to him in person.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was great. And also with our story time this week, we're going to talk a little bit about Maylong and camping, as we both are doing Maylong without camping this year. So we're going to get to that in a few. But is there anything else that you wanted to add before we get to Eric?
No, I think we're good to go. This is going to be fun. And it's another Saskatchewan Saturday night.
Another Saskatchewan Saturday night. If you're watching on the YouTube premiere, thank you for being here. If you're watching on the audio, thank you for listening. You can catch us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean, wherever. If you can't find it, let me know and we'll figure it out. Head to our website for the latest, Lang LeBlanc Podcast.com. And also, if you want to reach out to us, go to our website, fire us an email through there. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter, which will start coming out in June. That will have the full schedule of what we're going to expect for June and this upcoming season 2. Without further ado, we're going to pass it over to Eric Anderson. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy. Our next guest on the program is a former journalist working at the CBC in Saskatchewan for about 8 years. Originally from Swift Current, our newest friend of the podcast has a podcast of his own. The show, called YXE Underground, explores some of those flying under the radar in the Bridge City. The latest episode took a look at a Saskatoon essential worker, which we'll get more in depth on a bit later in the program. Now, though, I'd like to welcome our fellow podcaster, Eric Anderson. How's it going today, bud?
I'm doing very well, Brady. Thank you for having me on your podcast. That was a very nice introduction.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast, because I know it's been a pretty busy week for you in general. Can you kind of tell me how things have rolled out for you?
Yeah, for sure. So with YXE Underground, I do an episode a month. And so the new episodes come out the second Thursday of every month. And so the week leading up to it, I don't know if you're this way too, Brady, but I am a very much a deadline driven person. So even though I gathered the tape for this interview with this grocery store worker named Jordan Stover, I gathered it about a month ago. You sort of putz away at things a little bit, and then it's 4 days until it has to be released to the world, and you're frantically editing and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a busy week. And then the podcast comes out on a Thursday morning. I do a hit with CTV Saskatoon's morning show, which is always lots of fun. I'm grateful for that. And then there's just as again, there's lots of tweets and Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff to promote it and try and get as many people listening. So but I'm happy with how this episode turned out. And I think the more times you release episodes, you sort of get into a rhythm of things and figure out what the most efficient ways to work at it. But someday I'll be even more well prepared and not as deadline driven, but not today or this week.
So how long have you been running this podcast? And just for the record, your podcast sounds, I'm just going to say it without Avery here. Your episodes sound a lot better than ours. When we do our editing, we're very quick and dirty. We're like, get it out there kind of deal.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, but I wouldn't say that at all. I think your guys sound really great. And it's a different kind of podcast too. I think when you're doing the style of podcast that you guys are doing, I think it works well to do it as quick as you can, because you want it to be as timely. You want it to get out there as quickly as possible. But no, I think you guys do a wonderful job of editing, and the fact too that you have such a extensive radio background, I think really stands out. No, I think your guys' sounds great. I really love the editing part to it, and I probably spend, I would say, Brady, maybe too much time in the editing, making sure like things sound exactly perfect in my headphones, when in reality, probably most people are listening to podcasts on their phones. But when I listen to, or when I'm making my podcasts, I always envision two people in my mind that are going to hear it. Their names are Abby Schneider and Corrine Larson, and they're former colleagues of mine with CBC in Regina, and they have amazing ears, and I want it to sound good for them. And because if they were to listen and it didn't sound good to them, they would, I don't want to let them down, and they might let me know. So, but anyways, yes, to your question, I started this in 2018. So just wrapping up the third season. So that in month of June will be the final episode, and then I take July and August off, and then season 4 will launch in September. But yeah, I started this in 2018, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure you feel the same way too. Once you get a few episodes under your belt as a podcaster, I find it's like you gain that confidence, and you just want to keep going. And the great thing about podcasting is that there are no guidelines or rules. You can sort of make it however you want to, and so that's been very exciting to do.
First off, thank you so much for all your kind words. It's really cool. I think I know this sounds weird, but podcasters talking to podcasters, right? Because I feel like we're really in every turn, we're kind of learning from each other in a weird way, even though we may not be even knowing, right? So it's really cool to I'm starting to get more into the podcasting community. We started very independent and kind of like, you know what, we're just going to put out what we can and see what works. And another question I kind of had for you as well. Where did the idea for YXE Underground first come from? And did this also fall while you were working on or at CBC?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I noticed, especially my last year working at CBC here in Saskatoon, that I was working on all the current affairs shows, but spending a fair bit of time on the morning show. And we were, like every current affairs radio show, I thought we could have used more hands. We were understaffed. And I found that sometimes we were going back to the same people again and again. And not to say that they weren't doing great things, but if there was a topic maybe and we needed someone, to be a guest, we would go to that, maybe a person that we spoke to a couple months ago, because we knew they were a good talker and they were easy to book, Brady. So it wouldn't take a lot of time, because you've got a live show the next day. You've got 2.5 hours of programming you have to fill, so every second counts. So I just found that we were often going to the same people again and again, and I thought there's got to be there's got to be a whole other layer of people in Saskatoon that are doing really great things in the community, but it was so hard to find the time in your day job, in my day job, to to find those people. It's really funny you asked this question because this week at work, where I work at Sherbrooke Community Center now as a communications leader, we were talking about goal setting and then reaching your goals, and we're doing this thing called the 4 disciplines of execution. I have to read the book because a lot of it goes over my head, but one of the theories is that what prevents us from from achieving our goals and executing them is we get caught in a whirlwind of like the just regular everyday work, which I'm sure you are familiar with working in a newsroom. You might have a story that you really want to work on, but then something happens that day. There's a train derailment or there's a fire or something, and the news of the day sort of gets in the way and of what you were hoping to achieve. And so that was often the case at work. And so I wanted to do something and I just couldn't find the time to do it. So when I started working at Sherbrooke in 2016, I had this free time because when I would leave my day job at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I could leave work at work, and then I had this time at home, and I missed interviewing people. That was a big thing. And so I thought maybe I should, the only thing that was stopping me was my own, I guess, being scared of trying it. So it's like, why not do it? So I wanted to, I thought of the idea probably 2014, 2015, but it wasn't until a couple of years later where I felt confident enough, like, hey, I can do this. And it took a little bit of time to go from idea to reality. It's so different from, when you were just describing, Brady, in terms of with your podcast, wanting to get it out there right away and then just seeing what it was going. I felt like in a way, I felt like I had the luxury of time because there weren't a lot of podcasts, local podcasts in 2016, 2017. And I thought, okay, I've got time to really develop this idea and grow it. And so I sort of took my time, but it's exciting now to see how many local podcasters there are out there that are doing really amazing things. So I agree with you when you said off the top, it's nice to talk with other podcasters because it's especially for those of us who, like yourself, have a day job. It's it can be busy at times and to balance things, but I think it's pretty exciting as well.
And your kind of journey into the podcasting world, it didn't just stop at YXE Underground. When we originally met, it was I did an interview while I was at battlefordsnow.com on Battlefords Untapped. So have you been able to kind of dabble in the world of other podcasts and helping out other projects, or like the one in Battlefords? How did that kind of roll out for you as well?
Yeah, that's right. That was the first time we met, was through Battlefords Now. Battlefords Untapped, an original North Battleford podcast, came out of an idea from one of the most amazing human beings on planet Earth. His name is Rob Romvey, and Rob Romvey is he's just an incredible person. I was about to say he's one of my heroes, which might be like, maybe that's a bit of well, no, I don't think it is an exaggeration. I will say that Rob Romvey is one of my heroes because he genuinely cares about his community so much, and he puts the needs of others in front of him, and he will do when he gets behind something, Brady, he will put his heart and soul into it. And he's such a kind and generous man. So I got to know Rob because when I worked at CBC, Rob would do a 6:37 in the morning business hit on our morning show when I was working on the morning edition in Regina. And so I would have to call him at like 6:33 every morning when I was directing the show. And then we'd chat a bit. And then Rob would come down to Regina a few times a year because he managed the investments of a lot of CBC employees. And so I hit it off with him right away. We both love restaurants and fine dining and good food and good drinks. And then Rob was amazing at his job. So I said, Rob, please manage what little money I have. And so he's been very kind on that part. And so Rob had this idea of, I want to do stories, a podcast about people that are making a difference in North Battleford. Because as you know, Brady, from working there, like the Battlefords gets a lot of bad press. And so Rob wanted to do a podcast where it was showing the great people, and if Rob Ronvey asks me to do something, I will of course do it. So it fit very similar to what I was doing with my podcast. And so I did Battlefords Untapped for about a year, and then it just got to be a bit too busy in terms of, driving up to North Battleford and stuff. Although Rob lined up all the guests for me, and they were all amazing guests. And so, but it just got to be a little bit too much work. So the second season of that podcast, a great guy named Matt Jakes took it over. And then now in the third season, there's going to be a new guest as well. So that all came from Rob Ronvey. And I think if there was more Rob Ronveys in the world would be a better place. Yeah.
Awesome. Another thing we try and do when it comes to our podcast is kind of make it a little bit more easier on the listener when it comes to not just advice, but kind of showing people where to go, right? If you're a young broadcaster listening right now, like a big thing with me is I just wish more people would have reached out to me when I had questions. But if someone wants to get involved in podcasting or wants to get involved in even journalism, can you tell us a little bit more about your kind of origin stories and how you ended up at CBC and then eventually with the podcast?
Yeah. It's a bit of a long, winding road, but I'll give you the Coles Notes version. I got a history degree at the University of Calgary. What do you do with a history degree? I don't know. So I went into education at the U of S, and was a teacher for 2 years in a town called Frontier, Saskatchewan. I moved down there when I was 24, and it was a great learning experience. For lots of reasons, teaching just wasn't for me, but definitely enjoyed my time down there and met some amazing people and had the best students anyone could ever ask for. And I'm lucky enough to be in touch with a few still today. So very fortunate for that. But I remember I was driving actually from I had a day off, and I was driving from Frontier to Saskatoon to see Tool in concert because I love Tool. And I was listening to CBC radio, and I knew it was right before Christmas. And Brady, I kind of knew at that point that I wasn't going to be, I didn't want to come back to Frontier for a third year of teaching. And I was trying to think, do I want to be a teacher? And if not, what do I do? And then I heard Chantal Hébert on some talk, current affairs show on CBC, and someone asked her, why did you want to become a journalist? And she said, I love to write and I love to travel. And I thought, I love to do both of those things. So I kind of got the ball rolling in terms of applying to the University of Regina Journalism School, and was lucky enough to get in. So when I was 26, I went back to university at the U of R, and knew right away. I grew up in very much a CBC household. My grandma Anderson always had the CBC on at her house. So I was lucky enough to get an internship there, and I loved the radio side of things. And so, yeah, I was a TV reporter for one summer, and at the end of that gig, one of my bosses told me, he said, in a very nice way, but he said, Eric, we really see your future in radio. And so he was right. But yeah, I was trying to figure out, and when I entered journalism school when I was 26, I had classmates of mine that were 19, 20 years old that had written for the local Carillon paper, and had maybe a year or two of arts and sciences under their belts, and I had 2 degrees under my belt. So I felt a little bit old off the top, but it was an incredible experience. I can't say enough amazing things about the University of Regina Journalism School, and so many of my friends today, whether they are in journalism or in communications or doing whatever, I met in that class. So for any advice for people, like if you're interested in it, I wish, like if I was 20 years old and I was interested in it, I would reach out to a journalist like yourself or the local paper. I would just ask some questions and see if I can get my foot in the door somehow. But I would honestly say, like, we're so lucky to have an incredible journalism school right here in our province, that churns out amazing journalists. And I was talking to a friend of mine who does communications at the Remy Modern now, and we were talking about how she used to work at the Star Phoenix. Now she's at the Remy, but so many of the skills that we learned in journalism we're applying to communications today. So I know, journalism gets a bad rap sometimes in terms of it's a hard industry to get your foot in the door and to make a living out of it and stuff. And it's true. It's not the best for job security, but if you're passionate about it, I would highly recommend you give it a chance, because people need their stories told, and I think critical journalism is so important in our day and age. And what's exciting now too is that like yourself, you're a reporter by day, and then you have this creative outlet in your podcast by night. It's really cool that we get to do all these creative things as journalists or communications people. So yeah, I think it's an exciting field. But my advice would be check out the U of R journalism school, or wherever it is, King's College in Nova Scotia, Carleton, UBC. But U of R was great. Yeah.
Awesome. And kind of just switching gears here, can you tell us a little bit more about the latest podcast that you just rolled out? Just kind of more of a preview if people want to, jump over and check it out.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been wanting to do an episode about grocery store workers, because I think they've been just doing incredible work throughout the pandemic as essential workers. And my I don't have much of a life these days for obvious reasons. But one of the things I look forward to, Brady, is going to get groceries on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and I go to the Sobeys on 8th Street in Cumberland. And when I go there, I see a guy named Jordan Stovra, and I would consider Jordan a friend. Jordan and I used to volunteer together at CFCR. He has a show there too, but I'd often see him at concerts, usually at Amigos. And then my wife and I used to live in the exhibition area, and when we would walk our dog Fred, we would often see Jordan walking his dog. So when I see Jordan, when I've seen him for the last year at Sobeys, it's nice to see him. It's nice to chat with him. And then, beyond my wife and my colleagues at work, I've probably seen Jordan more than anybody else. Certainly my family. My family lives in Winnipeg, and so I haven't seen them in 17 months, whatever, but I've seen Jordan every week for the last year and a bit. And so I pitched it to Jordan. I said, would you like to be on the podcast? He said yes. And then I had to go kind of work my way up the Sobeys corporate ladder, but was able to get permission. And it turned out to be great. My photographer, Rana Andres, and we were able to spend a morning with Jordan. It was a Saturday morning, and he was working in the seafood department. And I wasn't sure, Brady, how it was going to sound. Like, I wasn't sure if we were just going to talk and then I would get sounds of him working. But the way it worked out is, like, he was really busy that morning. So I would ask him a question, and then he would just go about setting up the seafood department while answering the questions. So you hear him chopping up a halibut steak, and you hear him trying to get the ice machine to work and all that stuff. So it's a really sound rich episode. And I just asked him, like, what has this past year been like for you as an essential grocery store worker? And he talks about how just insanely busy the first 2 months were of the pandemic. He said that at Sobeys, their busiest day of the year normally is December 23rd. And he said every day for 2 months was like December 23rd. It was just crazy. So really busy. And then too, what he misses is that people, and I'm not sure if you're like this, but I'm kind of like this a little bit in terms of, you go into the grocery store, you've got your list, you want to get in and out as quick as you can. Jordan misses like conversing with people, and like the people that would just, sort of wander around and ask questions about, I'm thinking about, barbecuing a steak tonight. How should I do it? Sort of deal. He misses that. He's a pretty extroverted guy, loves to talk, and most people now just want to get in and out. So he misses that. But he talks for like, a wonderful 30 minutes about what this past year has been like. So I feel very fortunate that I was able to spend a morning with him, and very lucky that the Sobeys corporate communications people let me do this, because sometimes you don't know, like, you pitch yourself as, I host a local podcast, like, are they going to say that's cool, or why would I even bother? But the communications woman, her name was Samantha, she was like, this sounds really cool, you go for it. So that was nice of her.
My favorite part in the whole podcast was when he thanked you for only coming in once a week. That was really interesting.
Oh yes, I thought that was interesting too, Brady. Yeah, because he says some people come in, maybe 2-3 times a week, or maybe once every day to get their groceries. And it's like, on one hand, he's thinking, well, I guess it's good that you're a customer, but at the same time too, every time you come into the store, you are, and I guess anytime you leave your house, like, you're putting yourself at a risk. And so the fact, I thought that was really telling too. Because, normally when you say, I'm only glad I see you once a week, it's sort of meant like, oh, wouldn't you love to see me more? But in this case, it was, I did take it as a compliment. But yeah, I thought that was a really insightful thing for him to say. And I'm sure he's not the only grocery store worker that thinks that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll always, well, not always, but right now, when I think of your podcast, I can just hear the knife sharpening.
Yes.
Yeah. That was very poignant in the whole thing. And I kind of came across with it because right at the end, it kind of fades off into it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I commend you on doing all the kind of little things for your podcast, because we hear it, right?
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah, no problem. If you're in the industry, you hear those little things. And even when it comes to maybe a weird cut that comes in one podcast, like now that I am podcasting, I'm hearing those little things too. So
it's totally true. I don't know if you're like me, but whenever I listen to radio now, I have a hard time just sitting back and absorbing radio, because I listen to it so much. But like you, we listen to so much audio every day that we probably hear things that maybe the average person wouldn't hear. But you hear maybe that weird cut, or that point where it's like, oh, I wish that would have faded out slowly, or I wish they would have brought the sound of Jordan cutting up the steak a little bit louder in parts like that. Yeah, like those are, honestly, Brady, those are the things that I obsess about in the editing. And I know, but I appreciate you and your keen ears, because that makes me feel good that there are people listening to that. Because like when I'm recording Jordan talking, like, I've got my headphones on and I can hear the knives in the background, and I'm just thinking, oh, this is audio gold. This is great. I'm also thinking that the knives are really, really big, and he's slicing through the fish like it's like not even there. So lots of things going through your mind. But I appreciate the compliment, because I work hard to do a good job on that stuff. Probably too hard.
Well, you do a great job, Eric.
Well, thank you.
We are a Saskatchewan-centric podcast, so I know we're going back again. What are some of the best kind of memories you have living in this province?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I grew up in Swift Current, and Swift Current was a really wonderful place to grow up. It was big enough where you had some big city qualities, but it was small enough where like you did feel that sense of community growing up. So yeah, like I remember, like Frontier Days in Swift Current was a big deal. I remember my two grandmas, one lived in Morse and one lived in Chaplin along the number 1 highway. So weekends, especially on Sundays, were often spent either driving to Chaplin to see my grandma Anderson, and then driving back to see grandma and grandpa Wepler in Morse. So lots of good memories there. I've family that farm south of Chaplin and farm north of Morse, so lots of good memories there too. We stuck around like the southwest corner a lot. Like I've only been, the farthest north I've ever been, Brady, is L'Orange, and that's when I was like, I think 10 or 12 years old. We went to Waskesiu for like a few days and ventured into L'Orange for a bit. So there are still so many parts of the province that I want to see, but But growing up, like a lot of time in the Southwest, I played a lot of volleyball in high school. So we would often, like every weekend from the start of September, and then we played club volleyball till the end of May. We were gone pretty much every weekend. So we got to, travel around lots to, Prince Albert, Saskatoon, Regina, Weyburn, Estevan, Meadow Lake, North Battleford for lots of volleyball tournaments. So lots of good memories there. I lots of driving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it's like my dad was a big believer and still is a big believer about if you're gonna live in Saskatchewan, you should have a good car because it takes a while to get places in this province, as you know, and I'm sure your listeners know. So like if you're driving to Moose Jaw, I remember this is a random memory, but being in grade 11 and driving to Moose Jaw to the old downtown theater. I think it was the May Wilson Theater, and watching the X-Files movie when it premiered on the Friday night. And my Uncle Cam, who was a farmer north of Morris, he met me there. And then driving back, I was driving like through a torrential rainstorm, and I had a good car, thinking like, I'm glad I have a good car for this. That's a really random memory. That's a really good question, Brady. I don't know. Very fortunate to grow up here, and I've been lucky to travel a few places in my life and live overseas a few times, and it's been amazing experiences. But being 39 now and living here in Saskatoon with my wife, I feel very lucky to live here in this province. And it's not to say that this is a perfect place. No place is, but I feel I'm happy to live here and happy to grow up in Swift Current and live here in Saskatoon. Saskatoon's I really do love this city. And I do say that as someone who lived in Regina for 6 years. Regina has lots of great people. But I really love this city. Yeah.
You are a perfect guest because it feels like you just led me into this next question.
Okay.
Your podcast is centered around Saskatoon. What makes the Bridge City so special?
Diversity, I think, anyways. Diversity, and there's so many humble people here. And so sometimes people ask me what the hardest part of the podcast is, and it's definitely finding the guests. And so because people just do the work here to make their community a better place. And they work together really well, and they see like something that needs help, or an issue that needs fixing. And I know that I think this well too. Like you had Jason McCurdy on your show, and obviously with the work that Prairie Harm Reduction is doing is so important. And we've seen the community rally around the fact that they didn't receive the funding from the provincial government, and I was so disappointed from that. I've done a couple of episodes focusing on Prairie Harm, and the podcast has raised some money for it, and they do incredible work. And so I would say that just how hardworking and humble people are in this community, I think is wonderful. I love the diversity, and I think that really shows in the arts and culture here in Saskatoon. The arts and culture scene is amazing. I think of our live theater scene in Saskatoon. It's amazing. And you have leaders like Anita Smith and Heather Morrison doing awesome stuff. And then live music. Oh, I really miss live music. And so I've saved so much money this last year because I haven't been able to go to concerts. But that's another thing I love about Saskatoon is the live music scene. I think our food scene's awesome. There's something for everyone here in Saskatoon, and yet I don't feel like I live in a really massive city, which I like. My sister used to live in Toronto. She actually just moved back to Winnipeg a few weeks ago. But when I would visit her in Toronto, Brady, it was so much fun to visit for 4 or 5 days because there's so much to do there, and it's great for sports and music and food and all that kind of stuff. But after about 4 or 5 days, it's such a big city, and I just it was nice it's always nice to come back here, to come back home. So I think those are a few things I think is what makes Saskatoon just a really wonderful place. And I think the pandemic has obviously brought a lot of challenges to our community, but I think it's brought a lot of people together and shown the best of Saskatoon. And I really hope that momentum carries forward as you know, the community begins to open up slowly. Yeah.
Well, Saskatoon is such a special place. It's where we both live, right? So we're still here.
We're still here. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah. One thing we do here on the Lang LeBlanc podcast is try and give a place where our guests can kind of promote what they're doing. Obviously, we've been talking about what you've been doing so much on this podcast. We're actually going to give the listeners today a free couple minutes of just listening to your latest podcast. So instead of doing this, can you just give me kind of where your social medias are, where people can go if they want to talk to you or contact you, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, for sure, Brady. So you can find YXE Underground on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and all the places, you know, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And you can find YXE Underground on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram as well. I have no idea how TikTok works, so we're not on TikTok. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast, and I really think you guys are doing really wonderful work with your podcast. And so yeah, please keep it up, because I think the great thing about podcasts is that with listeners don't just listen to one podcast, they listen to a whole bunch. And I think the more local stories that we can share in this way, the better. So yeah, thank you for having me on your show, Brady. It's been lots of fun.
Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, you're doing great work as well when it comes to YXE Underground. So if you guys do want to check that out, head to right where Eric told you to. Right now, though, we do have a little bit of a preview, so we will play that now. Thank you again, Eric, and we will see you guys in a bit.
Jordan does a really wonderful job of answering questions in complete sentences, and I was able to gather a lot of cool sounds of him working. So you won't hear my voice at all in this episode. Well, maybe a little bit, but not really that much. When I worked at CBC Radio, we would call this a soundscape, where you let the subject of your story plus the sounds of their environment tell the story. And that's what I tried to do with Jordan, and I hope you enjoy it. In the first part of this episode, Jordan discusses what the first few weeks were like when the pandemic hit and how he's handled the challenges posed by COVID-19. Take it away, Jordan.
So my name's Jordan Stovra, born and bred here in Saskatoon. Love the city. And I think I'm a seafood clerk here at Sobeys, but over the past year I've done like a lot of different tasks and jobs around the store, from stocking grocery to working produce yesterday to being a cart getter, COVID person. It's a real jack of all trades, master of none kind of deal now. Oh, and right now we're currently standing in the seafood department at Varsity Common Sobeys. Kind of my favorite department to be at. I was a manager here in this department for a couple of years, and it is just a great department. I love fish. I love fish so much, and the stuff like cutting whole fish, cutting halibut, cutting like Atlantic salmon, stuff like that. I get a lot of joy out of. Same as like being like cutting beef or cutting pork. I get a lot of joy out of doing that and just like working and feeling productive. Yes, I can see everyone, and it's kind of quiet over here. It's not that busy. Usually we would have, like, if you look above us, there's a speaker right there, so it's nice for the music when it's working. I don't know why it's not working. You wouldn't hear all the lovely acoustic covers of 80s new wave bands that they play. No, it is just a nice area to be in. It's nice and relaxing. I get to feel creative in what I do here. Eric, have you ever seen a whole halibut?
No, I've never seen a whole halibut. Oh, boy.
It's not actually a hole. It's been cut into. But, yeah, I'm doing well. Doing better. Hey, buddy. This is like my one area where I get to like be around, like I get to see my friends here. I don't really try and go out because I already have enough people exposure. I'm a pretty social guy. I think you know that, Eric. I'm kind of an extrovert. The last year has been hard in that sense that I haven't had those outlets outside of work, whether it be like coaching football that I do. I met your wife through that, right? Stuff like that where I'm like, I don't have those outlets, my extracurricular activities, you know what I mean? Whether it be going to concerts and stuff, being like an active host at the studio at CFCR every week. I haven't had those outlets really, so it's been a struggle that way. It's been work, and it's been actual work, and you don't really have flow days anymore, which is weird. March 13th, I actually remember having that day off, and it was a Thursday, and I was at school at the university, and then I came here immediately after, because I was like, yeah, classes got short today, I'm going to cook some supper, and shelves were empty. And I'm like, I knew I had to work the next day, and I was not like pumped for it because I saw how empty the shelves were. I saw how busy it was, and I just remember that first 2 weeks being just like a grind. And I don't know how else to describe it. It feels like I'm in like conditioning at football practice for like the next for the entire 2 weeks, where it's like you're lined up all the time. I was working a lot of customer service, a lot of like cashier. I just felt like the entire day was busy. There wasn't really a slowdown period throughout the day. What really helped then though was that we were closing the store. Like our hours were like shorter. I think it was like 8 to 8 or 8 to 9. I can't actually remember what it was. And that was nice because it kind of made people choose carefully when they were coming to here. Now we've kind of extended it from like 7 to 10, so we still get people who come at like 9:30, and I always kind of think those people are kind of weird if you're doing your week shopping at 9:30. But I thank them for shopping here. But I think at the end of the day, I just remember, it's being a grind and not necessarily the funnest experience I've ever had.
And we're back. Avery, how was that for the first preview of another podcast in our podcast in this really weird podcasting world that we now live in?
It was different. I mean, us podcasters got to stay together here in this province because there is quite a bit of us, but there's only such a limited group of us. So it's a really nice interview with Eric, and I think that I hope everyone else enjoyed it too as much as I did.
Yeah, exactly. Eric is such a nice dude, and like I was really excited that he said yes, but it didn't even seem like he thought twice about it. It was like immediately text me back, yes, we're good to go. So here we are now. Thanks, Eric, for coming on. You are now officially probably the 14th friend of the pod. We've lost count at this point.
We need to get the whiteboard going, man. I should just go to Dollarama and get the big whiteboard and put it behind me.
I think that's what we need. Something like that.
Yeah.
But thanks again, Eric, for jumping on. And again, if you want to listen to YXE Underground, head to wherever you get your podcast. Just like us, you can go to Apple, Spotify, anything like that, and you will be able to find Eric Anderson and his YXE Underground. Now we're going to move right along with our Saskatchewan Saturday Night program. We're going to start with story time and some weird camping stories because it's May long this weekend, Avery, and we're both not camping. Can you tell me a little bit about your kind of history with camping and how much you're kind of missing it this year? Do you regularly go out on May long?
Yeah, well, not particularly May long because Dad's usually in the field and he's working hard. So usually I go with them when they bring the camper out or if they rent a cabin, something like that out at Waskesiu. Waskesiu's been our main location when it comes to camping. So when I was younger, we'd always borrow or rent a camper and we'd head out to Waskesiu, get a campsite, stay there for a week. A week seemed like a little long at that point, especially when you're at that age, right? Like you lose your patience and such. However, as we got older, especially my brothers, we found cabins that were up for rent there. So we'd rent those cabins each night, and that was a lot of fun. And then recently, my parents actually bought a camper. So now they can go at their own free will. So that's what we always did. And we'd always go to Waskesiu, walk around town, see what the stores were selling, and hang out at the beaches, even though when it's packed, like when there's 400 people on that beach, as big as it is, it gets pretty packed out there, especially on a 30-degree day. How about you? What was your camping like?
See, I felt for the first like decade of my life, I kind of grew up at a campsite in a weird way. I originally grew up in Katepwa, so that's a resort village. So you're literally right on the lake, you're right on the beach. Basically, I could walk out my front door and walk down the street, and there it was the beach. Yeah. But we did start camping kind of later on in my life, and I started, the first place I think we went was Madge Lake. And Madge is kind of our go-to. We're from the Balcarres area, so it's just far enough that you're kind of away from everything, but at the same time still close enough that you still feel kind of a sense of home, right? It's kind of near Yorkton, just on the Manitoba border. But I remember, I think it was the first or second time we went camping. We borrowed one of my friends, or my parents' friends' campers. And if you guys understand Madge Lake, Duck Mountain, that kind of area, there's a lot of wildlife, right, Avery?
Yeah.
So this is the first time we went camping. I don't think it would have been a May long. I think it would have been like a July, maybe in August. And we're all sitting around the camper, and all of a sudden you hear this like, what is that? And I'm like looking around, look out the window, and it's like, it's that big black thing going over there, like just walking through the kind of the forest. Okay, that's a bear. Yeah. And that was the first kind of understanding of like, okay, this is camping. This is actually legit. Like we are in their territory right now.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
But the cool thing is, the bears kind of seem okay with people being there. The first couple of years that we were there, I remember there was one instance where someone was camping down the road from us, and the bear actually took the topper off his truck and pulled it up. Like they're smart out there too.
Oh, they are.
Put his hand in there, and he was able to like open up one of those ice boxes and actually grab like a whole watermelon. And like he picked up the watermelon but dropped it, right? Because you can't expect a bear to like hold a watermelon like a running
watermelon
back.
Cut it up, eat it up on the spot.
Yeah, but when we saw it, I remember like the claw marks through it, right? And it was just kind of like, okay, this is cool, this is nature. And after that, my family kind of got hooked. They're huge campers now. Right now, I think my parents are in Echo, so a little cold. Yeah. When they said that they were going out still, I went, didn't you guys just have an ice storm?
Yeah.
So it was one of those, pretty weird, but I'm glad they're out there, and I'm glad they're having fun. So
yeah, that's all that matters when it comes to camping, right? And
yeah, exactly. I wish I was camping this weekend, but you know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I always remember feeding the squirrels at Waskesiu with our sunflower seeds.
Oh yeah.
We'd always hold them in our hand, and we'd try and get the squirrels to come right up to us. But then there'd always be the one time where we'd be in a rush to get to the beach or go to Waskesiu, go into town, and then we'd come back and all the spits would be spilled all over the campsite. There'd be squirrel turds all over the place, and it would just be brutal. But yeah, no, and one of the kind of outside camping experiences I had was our canoe trip back in grade 10. We went to Stanley Mission, and we went to see the Nestoyak Falls.
Yeah, we did that too.
Yeah. And we had 2 days there. The first day, our teacher told us it was too windy to go see the falls, so we were going to wait till the next day. About 20 click winds. He figured it was going to be like 15 the next day, so that would be better. Nope. It was 50 click winds the next day.
Yeah.
And he said it's a 3-hour trip to the falls and 3 hours back. So we were with the wind on the way there. It was a 2-hour trip on the way there because we were with the wind, and it made it so much easier. The way back, though, 6.5 hours, Brady.
Oh,
we had to pull over and wait until the wind calmed down. It never did calm down. but it was absolutely horrid on the way back. And people were mad. People were upset. People were grumpy, ready for bed. It was brutal. But that's the most iconic, I guess, camping trip that I've ever had, because we didn't have bathrooms. So you actually, Mother Nature was your toilet at that point.
Yeah. When we went on our canoe trip, so this was day one, I remember. Do you remember Poop Island? Did you guys call it Poop Island?
No, we pooped on the same island, so I don't know. Yeah,
so we called this island Poop Island because it's been a running tradition through my school in Balcarres that they just went every year. Not sure if that is happening because of COVID, but at the same time, we always kind of had this one thing, and it was Poop Island, they'd call it. So day one, finally get there, finally get set up, and I look around and I'm like, okay, I gotta go. So it was me and one of my friends. We decided to pop over to Poop Island. So we start canoeing over, right? And all of a sudden, like, you could see the waves start going up, and you're like, oh, I don't like that rocking. And the guy with me, he was not a water guy, not fond of the water.
Didn't take swimming lessons, eh?
No, but we're going through, and it's hitting the canoe. It's hitting the canoe. And boom, there we go. Like, just randomly. It was calm, and then it was like it did it on purpose to us. So both of us knock over. Luckily, we were almost at the point where we were at Poop Island. So basically, what we had in our canoe was everything to go poop.
The toilet
including
paper,
like the poop shovel, and some of our toilet paper. So day one, Avery, not even day one, like hour one, that's all gone. And we were definitely the belle of the ball when we came back just soaked without a poop shovel for the rest of the week, because I think we were there for 6 days.
Oh, that's brutal. 6 days.
Yeah, and we had a full class. Like, we had I can't remember what it was called, but we had classes on what we had to do with the canoe trip just to prepare us. And there was like a full day of just like how to dig up your poop. So we wasted a whole day for everyone in Balcarres Community School because of, that one little bit of wind. So there's my canoe trip story. And also, it only rained one day that we were there. We had perfect weather, but that one night was just the worst. It was so cold. Oh, God.
So camping's great in this province.
It is. It's
fantastic.
Another reason why we love Saskatchewan. And
exactly.
You know what? I think we should at one point this summer find a way to get a camping site and do a podcast from said camping site.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
We should do one in person at a camping site. That would be great.
Season 2, baby.
Ooh.
But yeah. Anyways, moving right along now. We did something. What was it? I believe it would have been last week. The NHL playoff draft, our first annual. I'm not happy that we have to talk about this, but at the same time, it is what it is, because if I was on top, I'd be very excited. We're going to run the graphic right now. Here's what we're sitting at. So Marty Martinson leading the pack at 45 points. Matt Barrett, 44 points, just 1 point back. Avery, you're at 35. You're 10 points back of Marty. And I am at 29.
We're still a long ways away from the end, Brady. So this could shift. However, I find it bad on our part that we're at the bottom of this leaderboard because we are the hosts.
You didn't put together the thing though, Avery.
That's true.
How do you think I feel? I'm just embarrassed. I did not hit on a few of my picks. I'm hoping for Peter Mrazek to return to the net. Marty's making me look really stupid there. Also, Jonathan Marcia show. Marchie. I picked him instead of Mark Stone. good job, Avery. Thank you for making me feel real stupid. But it's literally all in good fun. We're not playing for anything, so at least I can sleep well at night. But yeah.
Well, I think the Leafs only had their first game like not that long ago, right? So they're kind of behind when it comes to the series run up. So who knows? Maybe Matthews gets you like 3 goals one night here and you're ready to roll.
Here's hoping, and a couple on the power play. But even Leon Draisaitl and Darnell Nurse, you guys are making me look really stupid for being a Flames fan that went out of his comfort zone to pick you. So please, just score. I need something.
Get some points for Brady. He needs it.
Exactly. We're going to be updating the scores every day on our stories. So whether that be on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, you can, or what's Twitter? A fleet?
A fleet. They call them the fleet. I don't know why.
What a dumb name.
Just call it a story like everyone else.
Exactly. Speaking of stories, that kind of leads us to our askSask question of the week as well, which we have new logos and everything for, which is kind of cool. But anyways, this past week, we interviewed the Sheepodgs, Saskatoon's the Sheepodgs, which was absolutely great. Thank you so much, you two, for jumping on. Sam and Ryan there. They were awesome. We're going to play a little bit of a preview in a few minutes here, and it's pretty lengthy, but at the same time, it was just a really cool interview, I think, that we did. And it just showed basically how normal of dudes they were, right? I think we knew that going in, but at the same time, it just kind of shows their careers kind of got that kickstart when it came to that Rolling Stone contest, right? And even after all that, through it all, they still remain just really great dudes. So also with that, they talked about some of the smaller towns and different venues they played in. So that's going to be our askSask question of the week. So our askSask question of the week: which Saskatchewan venue, like music venue or anything like that, are you most excited to experience a live show in? You can give us our answer. You can tweet us on Twitter. You can Facebook us on Facebook. You can Instagram us on our Instagram. Anywhere. Give us your answers. And you know what? Let's just make this a kind of like, I don't want to say a roadmap, because that's a word that is already used. Yeah. But kind of like end of the road kind of deal. You know what I mean? Maybe tweet it out, give us your answer, and just look forward to that date, right? I think we're all trying to look forward to a date at this point. But yeah, music venues are going to reopen, and they also talked about kind of the intricacies of rapid testing also. So that's going to be really interesting. But what venue would you like to watch a live show in, Avery?
When it comes to venues, only one I'm really familiar with is definitely the SaskTel Center.
SaskTel Center? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one I have the most familiarity with. However, I would like to see a musical performance come back to Humboldt at the Uniplex there. Brett Kissel did perform here in town at one point, and that was a great concert. And I'd like to see them back at the Uniplex again at some point. Some sort of band, I don't care. Doesn't matter, good or bad. Show up at our Uniplex here and get us some music in town here. We need it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be interesting to see how rollouts go this whole summer. But I just want to I want to go to one in a park. That's where I think I would feel the most comfortable. The last concert I went to before this was at Prairieland Park. It was the Glorious Sons at the Saskatoon X.
My buddy Callum was there.
I think he was. That something like that would just be perfect, I think, for me. I would feel comfortable. Obviously, I would want to keep my distance still, because still in a pandemic. But at least it's open air, and you're not going to feel as worried, right? So that's what I'm hoping for. Even if that be at like Mosaic Stadium, put it at 50% capacity. Just Where Garth
Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks. Let's randomly bring up Garth Brooks again. All right, show number 7 for you, Garth. Anyways, get your askSask questions in, or answers in, not questions. You can give us questions too if you want.
Yeah, if there's something you want to hear, let us know.
Yes, exactly. We'll take all options. Here we go, though. Here's a preview of our Lakefront Tunes episode 17 of the Lang LeBlanc Podcast. Here's an excerpt, which starts now. Do you guys remember the last time you were kind of in more of a crowded venue? And is it weird to think back to those times now?
The last like pre-pandemic show we played was actually in Regina. It was part of the Hockey Night in Canada outdoor show. I don't know what they call it, the Heritage Classic. So it was the Flames and Jets in Mosaic Stadium. That was the last, kind of real show we played, although it was not like in a venue per se. I don't know, going back, it might have been a couple months before that we played inside somewhere. I'm not even really sure.
Yeah, I was trying to think of even when the last show that I've been to. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird because it's that thing. It's like everything, right? You didn't take it for granted. You didn't even think much of it. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in a real sweaty show, but I watched a concert film probably about 3 months into the pandemic. A band put out a concert film and it had a bunch of footage. And in Europe, venues are allowed to have way bigger capacities in smaller rooms. So you have what would be 1,000 capacity room, and in Canada is like a 2,000 capacity room, or seemingly it's like they fit so many more people, and it was like these huge rooms in Europe and everyone's crammed in. And I turned to my girlfriend and I was just like, man, I don't even know when I'm going to be okay with doing that again. It is very weird how quickly you're like, oh, I don't know. But I mean, that being said, there's good news coming out of they did some test concerts in Liverpool, where they did rapid testing, and they had 4,000 cap rock show at a 4,000 cap rave, and then cases, and people were just going off. And so, I mean, as long as I feel safe, I think I'll be super pumped to get back and get smushed into a venue sometime soon. Even more so being alone on the stage and space.
Yeah, we'll just put a sneeze guard across the front of this.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if people don't know, or if people that are listening to this don't know who you guys are, can you guys kind of walk me through your origin story and how you guys became a band? And I know this is going to be a really long-winded answer, but we're a podcast, so we're here for every second, right?
That's great. Well, I mean, I guess I'll start, Sam, and I don't want to tell the whole story, but I mean, we basically started very innocently. We were 3 guys who were 19 years old that wanted to try doing something different, and we just got together and started playing music. It wasn't necessarily that we wanted to have grandiose ideas or anything like that. It was sort of like we were at a place. I mean, everyone's there, especially if you grow up in Saskatchewan, it's like you turn 19 and you're kind of like half a foot still at high school and half a foot into university or into working a job or learning a trade or whatever it is you're going to do. And you're still sort of in this weird zone where you haven't quite met what the next step of your life is going to be, but haven't quite done. And we were in this zone where we kind of we're just wanting to try something different. So we all got together and started playing music together, and we took it really seriously. I think right out of the gate, I think 2 months or more straight, we jammed every single day. And keeping in mind that we were somewhat musical, but both Sam and I had never played our instruments before, and we were sort of learning it as we went. So I mean,
and even
that evolved.
Even Ewan had just gotten his guitar a couple months before then.
Yeah, it was sort of we all, I mean, it's kind of in hindsight, it's great. We all sort of learned how to play music in a group together, rather than having been in a bunch of different bands and trying to form a band or whatever. Yeah, so we've never been in another band, right? Which is kind of a crazy thing. But, that sort of eventually snowballed. We took it really seriously. We jammed every day, and we tried to get better and tried to learn more songs, and eventually started writing songs, and eventually started playing open stages. And then from open stages, then it was we got a show in Saskatoon during the Fringe, where I think we opened for the Mudman. Was that what the Mudman show?
Yeah.
A weird thing at a place called Lydia's that no longer exists. But so I mean, it kind of went from there, and then we started getting our own shows, and
we tried to record as much as we could, but it was tough back then because it was expensive, and we didn't We were going to university, and then we quit university, but we had pretty low paying jobs, and we'd have to leave them all the time to go on tour and lose money. So, you know, we tried to record as much as we could. We eventually self-recorded our album Learn and Burn. I guess we recorded it in 2009. And during that time, we were, you know, playing quite a few shows. We basically tried to get out to Toronto as often as we could for different kind of showcasey type of shows. And we would play on the way out, or we'd hop in the van, we'd drive straight out, which would be, I guess, like 32 hours. And then, you know, play shows around there and drive back. You know, we'd have these tours that lasted, you know, a week or a week and a half sometimes. So we're just like kind of toiling away, like pretty unsuccessfully. We'd have good shows in Saskatoon though when we came back. And we basically had no indication at that point we loved our music. We thought we had something, but it just didn't really seem to get a lot of attention from record labels or anything like that at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we would start like seeing a little bit of traction, like in a place like Winnipeg, or we'd start seeing a few more people come to our shows in Toronto and stuff like that. But yeah, we'd be going across the country, you know, as much as we basically like would lose all our money going on a tour for a couple weeks and then come back, and then, you know, we throw a party in Saskatoon and like rent out a hall and set up our own show with like our own bar to try to make as much money as we could and fill our bank account back up and then go out on the road again. So, I mean, obviously that all really changed when we found out that somebody at Rolling Stone magazine and Atlantic had gotten a hold of our record through a guy that we met in Toronto named Joe Carrier. And then that sort of the whole Rolling Stone thing happened. I mean, we basically got asked to be in this competition, which was, you know, the best unsigned bands to start by Rolling Stone, and like who would be the best one and they could get to be on the cover. And so, I mean, it became this whole contest that we went from being a band that was like starting to get a little bit of traction, and maybe, you know, like we won a Western Canadian Music Award and things like that. Like we're starting to get a little bit of notoriety, I guess, here in smaller circles, but this like the whole Rolling Stone thing just changed that. I mean, at that point we'd been a band for 7 years, and then from there, you know, things really took off. I mean, we were down in New York all the time doing these weird competitions and shooting videos, and we were on Jimmy Fallon making up a song about, you know, an audience member and having to perform it on the spot. And between that, and then we would come back to Canada and we would play big festivals and go and do that, and things really took off. We started getting played on the radio, like our song I Don't Know started getting played on the radio, which was something that, you know, up until that point we were told if we didn't sound like, I don't know, like Nickelback or whatever was popular at that time, like we weren't going to ever be on the radio. And so then suddenly that started happening, and
yeah,
that really,
like, I would like to stress that even when we were in the contest, like it was exciting. When we first got in the contest, it was exciting because, you know, it was the biggest thing that ever happened to us, but we had no inkling that we were going to win because we didn't sound like, you know, whatever was like a cool, popular style of music at the time. And we had never really had any kind of success within the music industry. So we didn't really think we just didn't think we were going to win, or at least I didn't. But then once we actually started doing the competition and we went to New York and we had to play these showcases in front of these judges and all the other bands were there and playing. And once we were there, we kind of started thinking like, man, I think we like maybe have a chance of winning, or at least making it further in the competition. So they kept whittling it down. Like, it started with 16, and went to 8, and then 4, and then 2. And we went to play at Bonnard Festival in Tennessee as the top 2, and we went and played on Jimmy Fallon as the top 2. And at all these things were like, I think we might win. And then, like, I mean, sure enough, we did.
Another question I had for you guys, this has kind of a personal tie for me in it because I work as a radio journalist here in Saskatoon, and the Junos last year. Mm-hmm. I was so excited to watch you guys at the kickoff concert. That was the one venue I wanted to go to because I was like, I want to watch the Sheepodgs. Finally, I have missed you guys so much throughout the years, whether it be those small town shows or the ones in Regina and Saskatoon. But anyways, I'll get to the point. How was that for you guys, that Friday the 13th, where everything kind of just shut down? And how tough was it not to have the Junos being played in your hometown?
It was definitely disappointing. Like when the Junos were in Saskatoon in 2007, we played at the showcase. I actually worked at the banquet because I worked at TCU Place at the time. So I was like serving drinks to, I don't know, Jim Cuddy or something. And then we went and played our showcase, which, was pretty poorly attended. So we were very excited to have them back in our hometown and to be like, a prominent Saskatoon band featured on it. We were going to present an award on the broadcast. And some of the guys came into town the night before that show that you were talking about. And we had a rehearsal and we thought the show was a go. Like we knew COVID was a thing, obviously, but we thought the show was happening. I remember Seamus came in and he's like, "Hey, did you hear that Tom Hanks has COVID and the NBA is postponing their season?" I was like, "Huh." And that was the first time I really thought, I was like, maybe the show isn't happening tomorrow. And then when we woke up the next day, it was like, sure enough, it was like everything was done. And, it's pretty disappointing. We had a lot of stuff lined up at the time. Like we were supposed to do a tour with the Black Keys, which I believe had a Saskatoon show as well, right?
Yeah.
And we were supposed to record an album in Portland and just getting ready to gear up for all this stuff. And, obviously it was all gone. So we just, we went out for a nice band meal that night and, we really didn't know what the future was going to be like at that point. I guess, it's still a little up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those things where it's like, for us, it's so fun. There's a lot of people. We know all these people. We see them in all these different events. And, there's all these people, that industry people and other artists and stuff. And so it's pretty exciting to be able to be like, we could take you to all the favorite bars. We were going to do like a Sheepodgs pub crawl thing, or we were going to like take a bunch of people out and go to like the off the beaten path bars and show people like sort of the city and stuff. And yeah, it was going to be really fun. I mean, yeah, that's like kind of the story of last year, right? It's like all these things. I mean, everything about being in a band is like planning ahead. There's not a whole lot of like, you got this thing today, let's go do it. It's like, you get this thing in 5 months from now. And so that was a lot of what last year was. And so the Junos being kind of that first blow to us, because like Sam said, we were going to be on the broadcast. We were going to present like the Fan Choice Award, which would have been like, it's like the biggest sort of award to give out on the broadcast. And we were going to like do a skit with Alicia Cara and like, it's all these things we were going to do, but plus also for us, like playing a show in our hometown and raising a bunch of money. Like we were going to raise, like, thankfully they still donated a bunch of money, but we were raising money for Saskatoon School of Music programs. And we were actually going to go present like a bunch of violins to a Métis school on 33rd Street. It was going to be like, here's a bunch of violins. Like it was going to be this whole like kind of great, time. They still got their violins. Unfortunately, we weren't able to present them to them, but it's a bummer, man. It really is. It's like last year, it was like a lot of really great things were on the horizon. So to have that all go away is obviously a huge bummer. And especially when it's so close to home, it's that like sort of like, if you want, anytime you go to the Junos, it's always because we're nominated. And when you're nominated, there's like certain pressures and also like stresses that go along with that. And we weren't nominated. I mean, we were off cycle. So we were just going to be partying and like playing a show and hanging out. Like there was like, we were going to have to do press things and stuff like that, but there's going to be no like high pressure situation. It's going to be like, let's let loose in our hometown with all our buds from everywhere. So yeah, it's a bummer for sure.
If you like the Sheepodgs, it's going to be more classic Sheepodgs for you. Coming out just in perfect time to play at Lakefront as
rip some beers.
Saskatchewan. Yeah, rip some beers. Exactly.
And yeah, we're on all the socials, even TikTok. We're starting to get that one fired up, but it's at the Sheepodgs at pretty much everything. So, and we're always around on that, so people can reach out on there. And yeah, I mean,
if you're talking questions, I think we're gonna do maybe some kind of like AMA type of thing around the release of the album. So
yeah,
get your questions in now.
Keep your ears, keep your eyes peeled for that in the next couple of days. I think the other thing it's going to be interesting to promote is that we're doing sort of to promote shop local. We have colored vinyl version of our album that we're doing that's exclusive only to independent record stores. And so the only place that you can get it, we could get a small amount of them off our website, but it's sold out in about 4 hours. So the only place to get our record is supporting independent record stores. So that includes in Saskatchewan as well. So There's a limited amount of colored vinyl that comes with the screen printed alternate cover that's going to be available exclusively at independent record stores. So go support your independent record store. If you didn't buy it directly from us, go support them, because they definitely need your money, and it's been a tough time for independent business. So we want to do what we can to kind of so go buy that and some other records, support them as well. So that's my plug on that too.
100%. Yeah.
All right, and we are back. The Sheepodgs, they were so good, Avery. What was some of the feedback that you got on this interview throughout this past week?
I think it was a realization that, you think of celebrities, kind of snippy people, right? But these people are down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
They're humble in every single way, and they interact with fans on every occasion that they can. I think that these guys are really excited to get back on stage once the pandemic's over, like we were talking about earlier with what's going to take place when that comes around, when it comes to musical performances. So, I can't wait to see them on the stage again and just to hear their whole story from them in their own eyes. It was a really cool experience to hear that. And then also their interaction with Saskatchewan, the smallest town that they've ever performed in, so on and so forth. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it was nice to get a little bit more variety on this show, right? We were talking a lot to people in the sports world, a lot of journalists, that kind of stuff. But to have music and a little bit of arts and culture in here too. Yeah, I think it just gives us a little bit more variety, which I really enjoy. And when you come to the Lang LeBlanc Podcast website, wherever you get an episode list, anything like that, we're not talking to the same people every week. Obviously, we're talking to each other, but we're really trying to broaden our horizons and show all the different things that you have here going in our province. And that kind of leads us to what we're going to do next week. Our second guest on this interview series, which we're going to deem the origin story series. Because why not? That just sounds fun.
That sounds way better.
We're bringing on Jenny Hagen. She's a storm chaser from Kindersley. And basically, she's going to talk about how she came to be and how she became a storm chaser here in the province. Obviously, we know that our skies, already we've had thunderstorms this year. Our skies light up every single summer. We are right here, right on the verge of storm season in Saskatchewan. So we're going to bring Jenny on. She's going to give us a little bit more as to what goes into storm chasing and also her kind of outlook for this summer. So that's going to be really fun. We talked for about 20 minutes. It's not very long. But what it lacks for in length, it makes up for in quality. So again, thank you, Jenny, for doing that for us. And yeah, that will be up, I believe, Wednesday, Thursday-ish. Depends kind of on workload. But yeah, also next week on Saturday, we're going to say goodbye to our season 1 and kind of take a look back. I don't think we're going to actually play any clips from the episodes we have had in the past. It's going to be you and me, Avery. And it's going to be
talking it out
the entire time. It's going to be our 20th episode.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. Next Saskatchewan Saturday Night is number 20. That is nuts to me. But we're just going to take a look back at our history, where we came from and where we expect to be in the future. We kind of did this exercise. We do it kind of at the end of every month, which is kind of what I like, because then we're able to bounce ideas off of each other, even in that sense, right?
Yeah.
And just have some fun. So we've done a lot of work in these first 3 months, and yeah, thanks a lot, Avery, for being a part of everything, and thank you to the listener for showing up every week. Right? Usually I tell you to show up every week, but thanking the listener this week. So
for sure. Yeah, no, thanks for doing all the work behind the scenes there. It's been a crazy couple weeks here. And yeah, thanks for asking me to do this. First
yeah, you've become quite busy, haven't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Wouldn't have it any other way though.
No, but yeah, no, this is good for me though, especially during a time where I have to stay inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm stuck indoors.
All right. So our last kind of new segment that we're going to roll out this week is Saskatchewan Salutes. So we're going to go around the province and salute who we feel need to be saluted. This week, I think we can all come together and agree. And it was really hard for me to think because we're having a lot of problems across our province right now when it comes to either like infrastructure burning down or being frozen randomly by the weather. Our emergency crews, our emergency systems, everyone at Sask Power, Sask Energy, fire crews, water bombers, water tankers, anything. This week was nuts. We had that major fire up in Prince Albert. We had fires in the Melville area. We had another fire kind of in the Prince Albert area too. I believe we have about 5 or 6 active fires going right now. Then we had that big ice storm that flew through. And we have had a lot of people without power. We have had a lot of people that were put in really scary situations, right? You think of the 75 plus homes that were evacuated in Prince Albert. It was a scary week in our province, and just a hats off to anyone that was a part of that, anyone that helped, like big or small, whatever it is. When it comes to Saskatchewan, we all seem to band together at the right opportune moments and make the best out of the worst situations. I cannot believe that not one home or structure burnt down in that Prince Albert Cloverdale blaze. That is crazy. Hats off to everyone. Avery, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, it was a big fire, and to have nothing burned down, I guess, building wise, is pretty remarkable. And I was actually driving to my hometown last week, and I had gotten to a point where I could see the smoke 30 minutes away from Prince Albert. And that's how big of a fire it was, is that you could see it miles and miles away. And to have the people that we have in this province that respond to such big emergencies such as this, and to put their lives on the line while doing that is quite remarkable. And also the community rallies behind these people and contributes to the victims of these tragic events. So yeah, no, shout out to all the first responders that helped put this fire out. I think it was like a 3 or 4 day battle, if I'm not mistaken, until they had actually got it under control. So yeah, no, that was a pretty wicked fire. And once again, kudos to everyone who helped put that bad boy out. Yes, exactly. I think that ends everything for this week, Avery. I think we're at about an hour and a half, so this is a perfect length. Enjoy your Saskatchewan Saturday night. Salute everyone that helped out helping Saskatchewanians, whether it be through fires, through the ice. Thank you again to the Sheepodgs. Thank you again to Eric Anderson. Thank you, Avery. Thank you to the listener. Thank you, everyone. We're almost at 3 months of Lang LeBlanc Podcast. We're almost at 3 months of you guys listening to us. So again, thank you. You guys have a safe May long weekend. We're going to see you here again on Wednesday. Avery, any final thoughts? Keep on rolling this Saskatchewan Saturday night. Just keep going. Have a fun long weekend. Enjoy your May long, whether you're indoors, outdoors, freezing in a tent, staying warm in your camper, whatever it is you're doing. Have a great long weekend, guys. May long mania. Have fun. See you next week. See you later.
The views and opinions expressed on the Lang and LeBlanc podcast are solely those of the hosts, producers, and guests of the program. They in no way, shape, or form reflect those of any affiliates the presenters or guests represent.